Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio here at the ENTSO-E conference in Brussels. I'm joined here by Ben Voorhorst, the president of ENTSO-E and also COO of TenneT. Ben, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So we've been talking off air about customer engagement, and this has been a theme obviously throughout the last year or two, particularly recently with the clean energy package. It's put customers in the middle, or it's certainly tried to propose to put customers in the middle of the electricity industry. It's clear, I think, what that means for DSOs, but what does it mean for TSOs?
It's about putting the customer, as you said, in the middle, but that means in the middle of the energy system. So it's not in the middle of a grid, but it's in the energy system. And I think everyone understands that energy system is in a huge transformation, and that makes that in order to make the transformation, but also to use on the one hand the capabilities and the flexibilities of the customers, we have to make sure that the customers are aware of what is his needs, how he can buy that from the market, but also if he has something to offer to the market, how he can bring it to the market. And therefore we have to activate the customers, that they become aware of this situation, and that they also explore the possibilities. They can do that by themselves, they can do that by utilities, by service company who are helping them to move in that setting. And that means for us as system operators, TSOs, we have to facilitate that and to make sure that the customers understand this kind of transformation, and that they start exploring, but also changing their processes with respect to the usage of electricity or the production of electricity.
Okay. And you mentioned they're using service companies, but there has been a suggestion that now, or perhaps more likely in the future, that TSOs could become more like service companies themselves and act more as a platform. Do you see that potentially as happening, and what would be the dangers of that?
I see that on one hand, I mean, and that's also in the conference, on one hand we have to take care of the hardware, the sufficient wires to transport electricity or transport and distribution level, but also how can we further integrate the market, how can we integrate the customers, the consumers, but also don't forget the small and mid-sized enterprises and for instance buildings who are responsible for building for electricity and heating of those buildings. All those customers, all those participants in the market have to become active. Now, first of all, being aware of the challenges we have ahead of us, and then become active in it. They can do it by themselves, as I just said, but also being supported by utilities, by service companies. And we as TSOs, DSOs should offer the possibilities to and the information towards the customers and the service providers, what kind of products we need, what kind of products the system needs in that respect, but also helping them to find each other. Because at the end, all electricity is in one system. At the end, the electrons, you cannot distinguish for which service, for which product. It's all in the same basket. And that is in itself very interesting, but that means that everything should work together. And therefore, I think the system operators also have to set up platforms in order to facilitate the market for them.
Okay. And you mentioned in your answer flexibility, as in the previous answer, and it's certainly a hot topic. What do you see as the role of transmission companies in enabling flexibility?
What in enabling our role in enabling flexibility is I would say two or threefold in that respect. First of all, we have to understand for ourselves how the dynamics of the energy system, electricity system will change. I already addressed that. From the past, we come from the setting that the generation is following the load. I would say bluntly that at the end the load has to follow the generation, because if we have renewables, it will be the sun and the wind. So we have to make sure that we capture that together with, I mean, storage can be on both sides. So all that should work together, but that's completely changing the world. We as TSOs being responsible for balancing have to understand this kind of behavior. But having that said, then the flexibility is also about how do we make sure that the customers, the companies, the service providers understand this, start acting and find themselves or each other in when they are trading to each other, when someone has a surplus, the other one has a certain need, how to bring that together. And these kind of flexibilities, but also taking that into your own flexibility of your load, that's quite a new area which is hardly explored so far.
Okay. And you mentioned with renewables the element of intermittency. Is that the greatest time-pressured challenge that's facing TSOs? The context for this question is we've been asking people what they see as the burning platform. What's the issue that's most important, that's most immediate, that's getting more important and more immediate? Is that integrating renewables into the grid, or is there something else that's more important?
I think that not in every area, it is not everywhere the same at this moment, but I think that for sure the integration and the amount of renewables is really a burning platform that really puts very clearly on the table what is changing and how fast it is changing, especially how fast and how fast are you able to respond to that. And that is for the TSOs and the DSOs quite a challenge if you have to reinforce your grid for that. Depends a little bit, but that can be long-lasting procedures to make it happen. But I think also another area will evolve very fast in the near future, and that is the behavior of the customer. Because they are now getting aware, everyone is understanding if you want to go collectively to take the goals of Paris into account, then more and more people start now realizing at home, at their own behavior, but also in companies, in business, when they are using electricity or energy, that they have to start start thinking differently. And it makes that also, if that population starts moving, helped by a service company, then you could also be really surprised about how fast things could go. And I'm pretty sure that also on the collective behavior of the customers, we will be on quite often, but there will be some surprises for many parties in the industry, but also for the TSOs, DSOs.
But you could argue that that's actually moving quite slowly in terms of, I mean, particularly if you looked at the UK market, most people are still not engaged with electricity in the slightest. Some people have got smart meters because they were told that it would reduce their energy costs, which we kind of know that it possibly won't. In other parts of Europe, that's probably moving faster than the UK. But will there be a trigger that goes from this slow adoption? There's a consciousness happening, isn't there, where people are slowly becoming conscious of their consumption of electricity and how they can play a part in it. But I'd argue that that's fairly slow moving. Will there be a trigger? Is it electric vehicles? Is it...
Exactly. I think that if you look at your old consumption pattern, I can imagine that you say, why should I change my behavior? And what is to be earned on that one? But I think that with 2 or 3 devices which will come in the coming years, that is the electrical car, electrical vehicle, that is solar panels, because then you are becoming producer, that is also batteries at home. And if these kind of things are going to happen, for whatever reason, and they have to be steered, and then suddenly also the customers becoming more aware of it and more active, and they also want to be supported by service company, because I'm not going to, as consumers are lazy, let's be honest. They want to be helped in these kind of processes. And I don't know, I cannot predict the future, but I could imagine that at that moment, for other reasons, other companies, other service companies could jump into the energy business and start helping the customer. And that could make the change going much faster than we can imagine today.
So I know you said you can't predict the future, but let's have a go. If we move forward 5 years, what types of companies do you think will be playing in the energy sector that aren't in it today, or at the margins today?
I would expect that at that moment we have startups and companies from a complete different scenery, which are already there today, which have close relation and good information sharing with customers, that they will come into the area of energy.
Like automotive or other types of homes, in-home providers?
That automotive could be one. I think the other one, companies like Google, Facebook, who have from other areas already quite some good relation with the customers. And the customers have chosen them for reasons, maybe not even paying for the primary product they are aiming for, but pay them back by something else. And if you put that and transform that if you take that picture, what could happen with the energy business, then you can be surprised on what kind of things can happen.
So would you imagine that at Amazon HQ they're talking about retailing electricity at cheaper prices than EDF or whoever the current supplier is?
I wouldn't be surprised. And if these kind of things start happening, I mean, not with your normal load, but together with your electrical car, if you have a solar panel, how to optimize, and your battery. Someone has to decide when do you charge your battery or uncharge. Yeah. And your electrical car, I mean, yeah, you have to charge it when it is at home, that's for sure. But at 6 o'clock in the evening if you start, or at night, who decides what? And these kind of things can and will be optimized. And I'm sure that companies will make offers to you in a total package of other things which you cannot imagine today.
So from a business planning perspective for a TSO, if we say we suspect that that's happening, that those conversations are already happening at that type of company using Amazon as an example, is it the responsibility of the TSO to get ahead of that and start conversations with those people, or is it a case of waiting until
I would not say neither of them. I would say we have to make these kind of things possible. Mm. Because as I in the beginning of the interview we spoke about flexibility. I think we as TSOs, together with the DSOs, we have to make it possible that everything which can be activated in helping the energy system to create this flexibility, we have to provide that kind of things, and anyone who jumps in should be helped on that one. Because I think we need all the effort, all the companies who can help us on that one. And we're just concentrating on the citizens because everyone can easily make some ideas on that. But I would also have a close look on who are or maintaining the how do you call it, those who are taking care of the larger buildings, the flats, the bigger houses, but also utilities in which people are living or working. Also, they are using quite some energy, and there's huge room to develop that flexibility, and also that kind of companies have to become active in the energy system.
And we've certainly seen companies like Arup have got a Microgrids division as an example. One would assume that those construction companies and engineering firms will start using microgrids far more. So, as you say, it's not just the end customer; it's the industrial level.
At the industrial level, and in small and mid-sized enterprises, and also they have to adapt their processes. They have to I would not say reinvent, but at least to take into account what energy does, how they use energy in their daily processes, and also the question how they can optimize their process in creating flexibility. Because if they don't do, they will pay at certain moments. They will pay the highest price, and they have opportunities to earn money, and they should use that, and not only the money but also energy-wise. Because if you want to go to a renewable energy and a decarbonized system, also they are huge consumers today of energy, and that have to be or at least minimized, but also become much more flexible.
Okay, and final question. You've mentioned a few times about the relationship between the TSO and the DSO, and how collaboration across the whole value chain and probably wider ecosystem is fundamental. Can you give a practical example of how collaboration is happening between a DSO and a TSO that perhaps it wouldn't have happened in the past?
Yeah, I think if I can mention one, I would say a good example which my company here in the Netherlands involved in is together with DSO Stedin, one of the 3 larger DSOs in the Netherlands, and we are now collaborating on developing a platform in which we invite customers to bring their flexibility to the market. And we do that together. Why? Because sometimes we can have a constraint on a congestion on the transport level. The DSO can have in the future, at least that is the forecast they are preparing themselves for. And at the end, we are looking at the same customers who can bring some flexibility to manage these kind of congestions. And it would be silly that a customer is just waiting to sell his flexibility to only one buyer in the market. No, I think we should facilitate, as we started with, the customer in the center stage. That means that the customer has flexibility. He should be incentivized to bring his flexibility to the market, but it makes that on one moment the customer should sell his flexibility to the portfolio management of someone else, the next day to the TSO who has a constraint, and the third day maybe to solve a constraint on a DSO level, to get the best price, but also to do it collaboratively, we do it more efficient. And that's why we now together, a DSO and a TSO and a platform builder are trying to make that possible, to investigate how we have to get information from the market that we can use these kind of products for all this broad setting, to look at the specifications. But also, by doing that together, we are developing and exploring, okay, what kind of constraints, what kind of congestions can we expect? And how can we inform the market? Because also these kind of things we have to learn. That is, I would say, collaboration in topics which, 5 years ago, that was not an issue. So also the collaboration was not there.
Good.
So that's really great
Progress.
to be active in that. Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. Well, that's a good note to end on then, Ben.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us in the Engerati studio here at the ENTSO-E annual conference in Brussels. Goodbye.